Is even a lowering from 145% to 80% enough for your constituents, for people in the agricultural sector in Illinois who are worried about how this affects their economics here at home?
Well, Kayleigh, thanks for having me on. I think it's important in this meeting between Secretary Bassett and Jamieson Greer to let the Chinese know that they can't continue to manipulate trade policy. They can't continue to manipulate the World Trade Organization. And so I think we have to be firm with them. And if you look at the policies that China continues to engage in, we have to change that behavior. And I think President Trump has laid out the parameters on doing that. So coming down to 80%, I think is President Trump showing that we're willing to negotiate, but we have to have China play by the same set of rules and standards that every other industrialized country in the world does, and play by the same rules. They can't subsidize things. They can't use state-owned enterprises. They can't continue to steal our intellectual property. That's the message that needs to be sent. We're willing to compete against the Chinese, but it has to be on a fair playing field. And President Trump is finally articulating that.
But when he says 80% seems right to him, Congressman, does 80% seem right to you, given everything you just said?
Well, I think if coming from 140% to 80%, again, is part of a negotiation. It's part of a strategy. If there's a way to work out where it's even and where we're on a level playing field, that's what we ought to end up at. But I give Secretary Bassett and President Trump the ability to negotiate in this process. And I think that's what the 80% is at now. In a perfect world, with the two largest economies in the world, we want to have a playing field and the same trade rules on each side. So we'll see. This is, again, the beginning of negotiations. This will be a long process. It's not going to get resolved in Switzerland, but hopefully the Chinese can come forth and start bringing some proposals to change their behavior.
Well, and as we consider the playing field between the U.S. and China and that competition, that, of course, is the focus of a lot of your work on the China Select Committee in the House. Are you able to confirm for us, Congressman, reports that the China Select Committee spoke with J.P. Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon about the bank underwriting a stock sale for CATL, and more widely, how you're looking at U.S. firms' involvement in Chinese-based companies in financial transactions?
Well, Kayleigh, we've put forth a number of policy proposals through the Select Committee on China, and one of those is restricting outbound investment from the United States, from banks, from private equity, from venture capitalists in many sectors, but particularly AI, quantum, high-capacity chip manufacturing, other sensitive sectors. We shouldn't be allowing, entities in the United States to invest in China. You're feeding the hand that ends up hurting the United States. And so there's a lot of support in Congress for doing that. The China Select Committee is heavily focused on that. And so we can't trust China with much of this technology. And I think there needs to be more restrictions on that.
I'd also like to tap into your expertise and your insight as a member of the House Ways and Means Committee, too, Congressman, given a key markup is coming on Tuesday. And we have a lot of questions as to what exactly is going to happen with this tax package. We just heard from President Trump in the Oval Office once again talking about it being good politics to give lower income people a big break. And we know the idea has been floated of raising taxes on higher earners, those making $2.5 million or more, to 39.6%. Is that something you personally support? Is the committee actively working on that proposal, or is it a non-starter?
Well, Kayleigh, as you mentioned, I do serve on the Ways and Means Committee. We are going to have our markup on Tuesday, and this is the one big, beautiful bill that has that's part of the reconciliation that will rewrite tax policy. Listen, personally, I have concerns about raising any taxes. If you go back to President Trump's signature tax bill in 2017, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act created the best economy in my lifetime. But we did that by reducing taxes from small and medium-sized businesses, on individuals, and bringing down the corporate rate to 21%. So we are focused on predictability and certainty for the economy, for long and short-term investments. I think you do that with making these tax cuts permanent and figuring out the proper way to give rocket fuel to the economy on that. I think you'll see, Kayleigh, when the bill is released on Monday and we have this hearing, there's many, many good provisions in this bill that will help stabilize the economy, get us on the right track. And we've worked closely with the Trump administration on almost every provision.
Well, Congressman, as we consider that bill, it's not just the tax components. This is going to be a massive package that also is intended to raise the U.S. debt limit. We just got a letter from Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent to the Speaker warning that the extraordinary measures the Treasury has been using to continue to fulfill its obligations could be exhausted by August, while you and your colleagues are on recess, suggesting that debt limit hike needs to happen by mid-July. Can you guarantee that this package will be done in time, or is there a risk here that it needs to be separated out?
Well, I'm not sure I can guarantee anything that Congress will do. However, I have a lot of faith in Speaker Johnson and our leadership team to follow through on the timeline they've set out. We're going to have a hearing next week on Ways and Means. Soon after that, it'll be brought to the House floor for a vote. I anticipate we're going to pass that and send it over to the Senate. To your point on the debt limit, President Trump has made this a priority to have it included in reconciliation. We can't default on our credit. There's real ramifications. We've not ever done that before. I'm confident that we as Republicans in the House and Senate and working with the White House will get this done. We have an obligation, responsibility to do that. And I think we're on track at this point to get it done.
And finally, Congressman, I can't let a Ways and Means Committee member off the air here on Bloomberg TV and radio without asking about the SALT cap. Will it be higher than $30,000, or is that the new number?
Well, listen, we're going to listen to our members that have concerns about SALT, but we're also going to listen to taxpayers and the effect this has on taxpayers across the country. And I think we've been reasonable thus far with the SALT caucus, but we're not going to give away the store in terms of the amount of money that's going to go to high tax states for policies they continue to engage in. We have a big, diverse conference. We're looking out for the best interest of taxpayers. And this would be a much different conversation if we were $36 trillion in surplus. We're not, Kayleigh. We're $36 trillion in debt. The SALT, deduction is going to cost a lot of money. And I think I'm hopeful we'll get to a resolution, but there's going to have to be compromise.